Welcome to Norfolk Perspective City Slice. I'm Bob Batcher, and I got two very special guys on the sofa. Don Musacchio, Vice Chair for NRHA Board of Commissioners. A lot of you know him as a community activist and probably didn't even know he was with NRHA. You like that one?
That's great. Thank you very much.
Because you were very much involved in the community, and now you sit at the table.
That's correct. And it's a completely different view from being a community activist to working in the Norfolk Redevelopment Housing Authority. So again, I've been on the commission 4 years and vice chair for 2, and looking forward to working with John and the staff to make sure that those things that are needed we can accomplish.
So you were at the table when it was time to look for a new executive director.
That's correct.
Would you like to introduce this guy then?
This is John Kownack, our new executive director, and we're very happy to have John there. He brought a lot of knowledge, in-house knowledge with him, as well as what impressed us was a vision for the future. There are a number of things that need to be changed. One thing I found interesting in being on the commission is that the definition of poverty isn't just a number of an income of which you're above or below. It's really a set of circumstances that places you at that particular place. And so a number of things that we'll be doing in the future are working to change those circumstances. Because simply moving 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 blocks away without changing the circumstances really doesn't help the person.
Right.
So one of the challenges that we've taken on as a commission is to talk to the residents and challenge them to do whatever it takes to beat the odds. And we believe our challenge is to therefore then change the odds. And so again, John's vision fits right in with that as to how we're going to deal with assisted housing in the future, as well as redevelopment.
Because okay, are you guys a city agency, a federal agency?
We are a political subdivision of the state, which means we're a public body that's empowered by state code. So the Title 36 of the state code gave localities the ability to activate a redevelopment housing authority in their jurisdiction. So we're created under the state, but each locality makes the decision whether they want one, and some have and some don't.
Okay. Now, Don, I mean, but the nature of the beast was really kind of given birth in the 30s and then acted on in the 50s.
1937 was the Housing Act, and basically what it said is that substandard housing is not good for families or communities. And even back then, there was a lot of research about people in substandard housing. The illnesses, tuberculosis back then was the big one. Crime was it, lack of job skills. Many of the things that we're seeing today were the impetus for getting rid of substandard housing. When you first come on the commission, they often give you one of the early reports from 1946. And it shows in the Church Street area, it shows houses, literally tar paper houses with no running water, no indoor plumbing. It shows a place called Tidewater Apartments, which appears to have been an old warehouse, where they have, the average is 7 people in each room.
Whoa.
And so the impetus then was to get rid of that and put up what are now Tidewater Gardens. We had Roberts Park, other kinds of communities, and that was a big part of the commission's work, the authority's work. And then over time it came down to some redevelopment. How do you move parcels around? How do you do certain things with parcels of land throughout the city? And so now we are redevelopment and housing.
And it's kind of taken on different challenges almost by decade. I mean, I can remember, you know, NRHA being the developer of the mall.
The mall.
Of Broad Creek. East
Broad Creek. Waterside.
Right.
Basically, what Don is saying is, you know, we spent 30 years removing blight and building better, safe, decent sanitary housing. And in the 50s, that moved towards a redevelopment of communities that were almost exclusive from public housing communities that were built. And we spent 30 years redeveloping Ghent and Park Place and Ocean View and Lafayette Winona and Colonial Place. And now the pendulum has kind of swung back towards transforming the public housing communities that were built 60 years ago,
right,
and now need a dramatic facelift, if not significant renovation, all-out redevelopment.
Well, and then when you look at the communities, I mean, they're, number one, structurally, they're that old. And
Right.
if anybody is watching this, if you've got you're sitting in your living room and it's 60 years old, odds are it's had a different coat of paint on it, it's had a different front porch. You know,
Right.
things have changed.
Right.
But also the approach to affordable housing has changed over the years, right?
Correct. And the city has been a big leader in that. We take, we've always said the city plans the work and we work the plan. So we rely heavily on the planning department, on the leadership coming from city council. They created the Mayor's Task Force on Poverty Reduction, which came out with its report last year that talked a lot about the need to have a comprehensive affordable housing strategy. And the administration under Marcus Jones, the city manager, has moved ahead now to hire someone to really work on a comprehensive affordable housing strategy. And that we need to collaborate with that in order to make sure that we're providing good choices for the people who need assisted housing in Norfolk.
Now, great intentions to solve all the world's problems and make it perfect. But there's a song from Cabaret keeps going through my head during this interview. Money makes the world go round. Where does the money come from?
Where does the money come from?
You don't have a printing press in that new building you're moving to, right?
Right. Well, for redevelopment purposes, the city through its local capital program has shown a lot of the way to that. Federal funding is available in some ways, but with federal funding comes federal strings.
Right.
The most potent funding source we have is the use of low-income housing tax credits, which sounds complicated, but what it essentially does is give investors credit so they'll give us money that doesn't have to be paid back. So it's financing new quality renovations, new housing, without having a major debt that has to be covered by rent. And that allows us to charge much less rent, a rent that's affordable to folks who are at 30% of area median income, $20,000 a year or less for a family of four.
Wow. Don, I mean, sitting around the table, it seems so simple, this table. But sitting around the table when the commission, I mean, so you've got some vacant land, you build high quality stuff there for affordable housing, right? And you move people into that, right? It's not that easy?
If it was that easy, it would have been done all along. But there are a number of restraints that come with that. One of the changes was the change in the eminent domain ability of public housing authorities and cities to do that. So we need willing sellers. If we had a brand new map, everything was blank, it would be very easy to put in a number of these changes that everyone agrees need to happen. But when you already have thousands of residents living in thousands of buildings, you can't just tear them all down one day and poof, there'll be new housing the next day. So we have some issues with absorption. If we were to tear down some buildings, where would the people go? John has made a commitment that if we are going to demolish some buildings, that there won't be any forced relocations from the community. I think that's very important for our residents to understand, because that is a fear. That is a fear that we will come in, tear down an entire community, and basically say, have a nice day. And we've made it clear, and again, John has certainly brought that vision out, that as we do these things, we will give people the maximum amount of choice that they can have, whether it's a voucher, whether it's moving within the community, or the ability to go to another community. So we want to make sure that the folks understand that this isn't about getting rid of them, it's about change, as I mentioned earlier, it's about changing the circumstances.
Don brought up a word, and I was looking to see what your reaction was, because choice.
Choice.
Because quite often, the people that you're dealing with in a day-to-day may not feel like they have a choice, right? So how do you create those choices for people?
Well, our Broad Creek project, which actually, took down 3 public housing communities, 767 units, and rebuilt 490 units there, of which a predominance is assisted rental housing. that's gone a long way to hopefully earn back some trust. The redevelopment activities that we've talked about that we're frankly very proud of still came at a cost of gentrification to low-income neighborhoods. And there's a valid concern that, you know, despite what I say, folks are going to get thrown out of their homes. And so that's why I've tried to insist at every opportunities that if we're going to renovate communities or redevelop communities, attrition is faster than absorption. So there is no way we're going to force a family to move out of the community in order to pave the way for redevelopment. There are enough people, over 10% a year, that actually move out on their own and move on to other circumstances. And basically, that's the speed of which redevelopment or our renovations will keep pace. But you have to earn that trust back. Because
okay, I want to kind of address some myths. How does it work? I mean, the idea is the public housing community temporary housing while somebody gets back on their feet? Is it generational? What is the reality?
I mean, the reality is public housing itself, the minimum income requirement is you have to be at 80% area median income or below, and that's $56,000 a year or below to be able to come into public housing. The reality of that is our average earned income of our population is right around $5,000 a household, over 50% unemployment. So we have 6 family communities that would kind of be considered the traditional barrack-style public housing, and they are literally centers of despair. And despite good management, right, and their folks are living there because they have to live there. At the same time, there are folks who want to live there. So we want to make sure every time we have a chance to talk to the public that our residents who want to stay in public housing, who want to stay in the communities, will be able to stay there. They may have to move in order to alleviate flooding or in order to move into an apartment that we've equipped with central air or renovations, but if they want to stay in that community, that will be their choice. If they want to have a choice to move into a private apartment with a housing choice voucher, that will also be a choice. And that brings up a whole other issue about, you know, do we have enough quality apartments throughout the city of Norfolk that can absorb folks that are making those choices?
Well, I feel like we just got to the cliffhanger, and it's a conversation we need to keep having in the community because we have a responsibility, as you said, to really work on having people have quality, affordable housing, but it's a very complicated formula. And I want to have you back on so we can continue this conversation.
Sure.
So stay tuned for more right here on Norfolk Perspective City Slice. How's that for a cliffhanger ending?
Sounds good, Bob.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us.